If you play Build and Destroy, you either fall under one of two categories. One, someone who makes realistic, usually more smaller tanks, with a focus more on realism. Or two, you make a tank that is more based off mechanism and customality, such as like personality to your own design, or being, more bigger, less than these things that fall under more realism. The reason I bring this up is because realistic tank builders, which are the majority of most tank builders, don't seem to be a very inviting network for people interested in building tanks or armored vehicles. Among these people that I see building these realistic tanks, I notice that all their conversations between each other are just this like whole mess of just, hey, your tank's not as realistic as mine. Or, you don't have that much detail. And I'm not saying this is for every realistic tank builder. I know there are those who are supportive of others, but every time I'm with or around people in that community, it always feels like there's a sense of tenseness or competitiveness between them. Just because one tank looks more realistic than the other, and especially if they're trying to replicate the same tank if it's from a war, that's like, I see a lot of German and Russian tanks in Build and Destroy, obviously inspired by the events of World War II, which, okay, you're welcome to do that, but I don't understand why you have to have like an hour-long fight when I'm just trying to chill in the server about how whoever's tank is more realistic than whoever's, because they just look better or whatever, and in some aspects it may not even look better. So I don't know why you're having this argument when you can just chill down and accept that, okay, we're both going for our own thing here and we can just go our separate ways. Another thing more specific to me is that a reason I don't build realistic tanks anymore is because when basing off of realistic tanks or making them off of this like presumption of more realism, no matter how it works, it is always off meta. I can never win a battle if I'm using a realistic tank. There's no way possible. If I have to make, my shells this small or this big or whatever to compare it to the gun size, or, I have to have my armor this thick or this thin, limiting my effectiveness against phase and such, I'm not having fun enjoying that. I understand the funness of just, building something that looks realistic, and I understand that to an extreme extent. I've done that before. I've made realistic tanks and they're fun to make. But, if you're making realistic tanks, you shouldn't have this mindset that your tank is going to be awesome and that's going to win you every battle. Because I've destroyed so many people with realistic tanks where it's just, they even start like salting me just because they're like, oh, you're hacking, blah, 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 phase. OP block armor, you shouldn't be using that armor just because, you kind of invented it on your own or whatever. You're being original. There's nothing wrong with being original. You can be any one of those tank builders. It doesn't really matter. If you want to make realistic tanks, you can do that. If you want to make tanks completely out there, you can do that. If you want to make like a tank with a turret the size of its hull, I don't care. Do what you want. But just, this is something that I feel has to be acknowledged, because it's something that I'm starting to notice. Maybe not as often as earlier in this game's life and the pregame, but still it's there. So I feel like it's necessary that's recognized.